whole series has such a great theme song.
You bite your tongue. The first 2 seasons were very, very almost decent.
Oh, God. Can't wait for that Highlander episode. All right, ready?
Yes. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to your favorite podcast for movies, comics, and culture. I am your host, Anthony.
And I'm Matt.
And we are here today with our sponsor for today's episode, Twin Lights Brewing, and we're actually tasting today's Voyager.
Yeah,
beer.
For the camera, the Voyager.
For the camera.
I know, we're not used to that.
Yeah.
This is the American Pale Ale. I have not had it yet. Just took a sip. It's absolutely fucking delicious.
It actually
is.
It's
fantastic. I mean, listen, I haven't had a bad one yet, so I'll be shocked when I get to a bad one.
Yeah, no, these are great.
They say they can't all be winners, but so far.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that product placement.
Yeah.
Great product placement right there.
It was fun. We actually had just to quickly diverge and plug for another podcast on the Review Podcast Network.
Ooh.
On Tuesday, Will, founder of Twin Lights Brewing, joined us at Loteria in Asbury Park, just like completely on a whim. He was like, hey, we'll come get a drink with you at Asbury Park Distilling, because we always go there before we go to Loteria. So one drink turned into 2 at the distillery, and then Campbell was also there too. And Will was just like, yo, guys come get tacos with you? We were like, yeah, like of course, obviously you can. Like we have our designated space at Loteria every week anyway. They have a table. It's actually about the size of this table right here, and it's funny because every week we go, me, Billy, and Dave, it's usually just the 3 of us, we sit at a table this big. And this is a table for like 12 people.
Yeah.
I'm sure when the summer rolls around and it's crowded there, like we won't have that same. We'll be eating outside because it'll be better in the
and
summer.
It's going to be gorgeous. Gorgeous in the summer.
So we filled up the table, and Will brought another friend also. So there were 6 of us just half drunk and high, just yelling at my one omnidirectional microphone. It was fun. It was a good time.
And just talking about tacos, man.
Right, man? Yeah, we actually talking about the Super Bowl. That was the topic of conversation for the most part.
The flag bowl, the penalty bowl.
Dude, it was brutal.
Man, I think as far as the Super Bowl goes, I think that we may have seen the kryptonite to the Patrick Mahomes, Supermanness.
What, the referees that Tom Brady pays off?
Well, that too. No, I think that the defense played him really, really well.
No, they really did.
I think they exposed, maybe some weaknesses in Patrick Mahomes. Will he be at the next Super Bowl, or will he fall flat?
Yeah, I think
Stay tuned.
Yeah, not to turn this into a sports podcast, but I mean, I don't know. They just I don't know if I feel like he didn't really come to play.
You don't want to turn this into a sports podcast with our obvious encyclopedia of sports knowledge that we are displaying right here.
I am not a sports ball
sports ball guy. I'll talk baseball with you all day, but
it's like it's us talking about sports is like that meme where the dad opens up the door and the kid's playing on his computer. He's like, "Are you winning, son?"
Are you winning?
That's us trying to talk about sports.
Go get him.
Yeah. Did you score a home run?
My favorite sports team. Go score a goal unit basket.
Oh God. All right, so let's get into the real.
Why are we here? Let's talk about it. And we obviously here today at A Shared Universe, but we are at the new Bellworks A Shared Universe location, which I have to say, for anyone who hasn't gotten a chance to come down here and see it, I would strongly encourage you guys to come down and check it out, because not only is the storefront very, very cool, you can have, sort of a glass front. So if you prefer to podcast with an audience, you can always do that.
Yeah.
But it's just absolutely gorgeous.
It's beautiful. And that table that you got in the front there, Ming, in the window, that Man vs. Wood, dude, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it really
absolutely
looks cool.
Beautiful. Shout out Man vs. Wood. It was fucking incredible job you did there.
Yeah. Really nice.
Yeah, it's just I love. Ming, are you going to name the studio is the Eatontown like A Shared Universe 616, and is this like?
Oh,
that's a great question. I've been toying, since it's kind of like a fishbowl look. I've been toying with the name, the Danger Room.
Oh, I like that.
X-Men.
Yep.
Reference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll turn people off. It's like, oh, am I gonna get blasted
like
with
a
lasers?
danger room. I don't want to go in there.
Yeah,
Like,
Professor X gonna send holographic sentinels after me. I might have to go back to the past to save my future. Like I don't know, but I'm toying with that idea. Yeah,
That would be awesome.
yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, yeah, I like
man.
it. The danger room. You can even set up maybe like some laser lights and just to
Yeah.
make people paranoid.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. We got Famke Janssen to come in.
Oh,
you know,
man.
like that would be-
I know you got her on speed dial, don't you?
no.
No, okay, she's not one of the
Yeah,
ones.
I had my shot. I saw her at a coffee shop in L.A. a couple years ago.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, she was just hanging out with her dog, and there was some dude with her. Like I don't.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, the only words I could manage out was like, "Hey, nice dog." It's just so lame.
Isn't she like ridiculously tall?
She is, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
ridiculously beautiful.
Yeah,
she
is.
And like it's insane, but yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
one of those
remember-
things where you really want to be, charming, eloquent, funny, and nice dog.
I remember
That's
I
what
always
comes out.
I always chuckled in Rounders because she was one of the characters in Rounders, and any scene she had with Matt Damon, who's like short, she'd be
really.
looking like down on him.
Yeah,
like,
she was towering over Matt Damon.
Yeah, I got to interject because every time I see that her character name is Petra, she runs one of the underground
Yes. Yeah.
like poker rooms, but
Yep.
he's like pushing her away, and I'm like, get out of here,
Yeah,
man.
stop.
No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
way.
especially
No.
she's like hammered drunk too, and like she comes over like after his girlfriend leaves him. It's like,
Yeah.
really?
They're trying
You're
to
gonna
show
say
that he's
no?
like a good man because he's still got his girlfriend who's like a 4, and then Famke Janssen is like an 11. Like, come on.
Yeah, let's give
that's just mean.
Gretchen Ball's a solid 5. Come on,
Oh, come on.
come on. But even if you ever listen to the commentary for that, like Ed Norton cannot stop talking about how hot she is,
Yeah.
and and he's not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, right?
He's not
Yeah.
wrong, but it's almost overbearing in the audio commentary. I highly recommend it.
I
It gets to
definitely
the
have
point where it's
listen.
like uncomfortable. You're like,
Yeah,
okay,
you're like,
man,
okay,
like I get
okay,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would too. Okay, but
Where is the line that
Yeah.
borders on creepy and okay?
Well,
right about there.
in 1998 or whenever that movie came out, there probably wasn't a line. Nowadays,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
98. I was right. Look at
Yeah.
that.
Wow,
Man,
it was 98,
I am
huh?
a fucking genius.
Man, way to go. Home run for you.
God. Anyway, so what we really want to talk about today is, well, there's
Yeah.
a few things, but I think what's going to dominate most of the conversation because it is so mind-blowingly awesome. I actually read a fun little factoid when I was waiting online at the store before I got here. It is, I'm not sure how they were gauging it, like ratings-wise or streams or whatever, but WandaVision is currently the most popular show in the entire world. Rightfully so. This show
Wow.
is amazing.
Wow.
Like, just next level good.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's such a unique and brave form of storytelling. It's such it's so different from everything that we've gotten already in the MCU. It's different from every other show that's being shown right
Yeah.
now. It's such a slow, complex storyline and a slow burn into the story. And it's just but it keeps you on the edge of your seat where you get little crumbs of like what's happening next. And it keeps you coming back for more.
I think a real accomplishment of this show overall. So we're 7 episodes in now, right? Or 6 episodes. in.
6
Yeah.
episodes, I think.
So for me, the greatest accomplishment of this show, just overall top to bottom, is the fact that it's a comic book show. It's a superhero show. There has been pretty much zero action. Like the
Yeah.
most action we saw was this week when Jimmy Woo fucking knocked out a couple of
Yeah.
sword agents. You know,
Yeah. Careful
I-
of spoilers for those of you who haven't
I
seen
almost
it.
Sean got sword.
Yeah,
sword
sword.
agents. But like so it's a superhero show with no action, right?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
very character driven, very story driven,
Yeah.
very mystery driven. And here's the thing that gets me. Now, typically in the past, when you've talked about comic book properties
Yep.
that are more character driven, they're almost always synonymous with being dark, like Joker. Right?
Yeah.
Joker, very
Yeah.
dark. You know, even Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy to an extent. Not a whole lot of action. You know, all things considered, across those 3 movies. I mean, there's
The last one.
the
had
last
a
one
lot,
a lot more action,
yeah,
but
had a lot
the
more.
2 better ones were
Yeah.
a lot less on the action, but they were also so dark. So what I love about this is that to me it feels like it's the first time we're getting a superhero comic book property that is showing you that you don't need to have constant over-the-top action, and you don't need to make it dark to make it compelling. And we've been saying, like, this is something the MCU has been doing for a very long time, but it's the first time we've seen the MCU do it largely absent of over-the-top action.
So I'm going to agree with you and say that we're seeing that being done right now. The problem is that it's ridiculously difficult to be able to do it. Right? Because you've got this concept of a superhero and then you're not doing superhero stuff. So, and in fact, you're taking a turn to the past and you're making this like originally a 1960s, then 70s, then 80s.
No, 50s first.
Right,
50s.
That's right.
Yeah.
50s.
Van Dyke, baby.
Right. 50s, then 60s, 70s, 80s now. Kind of sitcom element. And I think that it's only because of the story that they're telling, little Easter eggs that they're giving us, and that it's good. Like, it's being told in the right way, and it's an interesting mystery story.
Yeah.
And I don't think that this would work in any other medium than a half-hour episode.
Yeah, and another reason it works, too, let's not dismiss this, not to take away from how well done the show is, but another main reason why this story works is because, with the exception of, like, Monica Rambeau, for the most part, these are characters we know. We know everything that has happened to Wanda up until this point. We know everything that's happened to the Vision. We know about Darcy, like comic book fans, we know what the fuck Sword is without them having to tell us,
Yeah.
So it is very much reliant on what's come before it, in a sense, but at the same time, though, that shouldn't be used to detract from the quality of it, because we're in the world now of the MCU where everything is going to be like this going forward. Everything is connected, So remember when Endgame came out and we were talking about it, or Infinity War even, and people were like some critics were like, "Oh, Infinity War sucks. Like, am I supposed to understand what's going on?" Like, yes, you are, because you're supposed to watch the previous 20 movies leading up to it. Like, you can't form an opinion on this without knowing what came before it. Like, you don't need to watch, you don't need to watch, Daredevil or Punisher to know what's going on here.
Right.
But you've got to at least see the core MCU movies.
Yeah, and you don't need to see everything, I mean, there's a lot of the movies that you could have cut out,
exactly.
and you can really still understand, for the most part, like, what's going on.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the main things that, especially with Infinity War, obviously you needed to see, Thor Ragnarok really help bridge that gap.
Into it.
Right? And if you definitely, like, that's one of the ones where if you didn't see it, I could understand, like, because it just kind of throws you in there.
Yeah.
Right? And it starts right away with Thanos beating up the Hulk and everything like that, and Thor being beat up and Loki dying or not dying again. So, yeah.
Well, that universe's Loki is dead.
Oh, man.
The Loki we're going to see is multiverse Loki.
Yeah, multiverse madness.
So let's pick up where we left off. The last episode we talked about WandaVision. We talked about the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
So episode 4 is the first episode where we diverge from the sitcom format that we were seeing, and we're totally in the real world outside of our little hex bubble, which I love the fact that they call it a hex, because in the comic books
it's
that's
hexagonal.
No, it's from the
come on, that's what Darcy says. She goes, "Look, it's a hexagonal shape," and
okay,
she's like,
fine.
She's
but
like,
we
I like
all
calling it
know
the hex
from the comic books.
Yes,
that's what they used to call our powers. They still do call our powers in the comic books. She's gonna put a hex on your powers. Anyway.
Hex powers. Yeah.
So in the
that's a spell. It's a witch
spell.
Yeah.
So in the 4th episode, we are finally taken outside of the town of Westview into what is outside of it, a little sword encampment. And the first thing I want to say is that I loved how, so in Spider-Man Far From Home, we saw people just flashing back after Hulk's snap in Endgame.
Yep.
WandaVision did it in a very cool and different way, which I'm not sure if that's going to come back into the story at all or not, but remember the scenes where it was like it showed people like undusting, like reforming, like that was like so freaky. Like
it was a really cool take on how people would be coming back after they were snapped, they're snapped away. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is the fact that Monica Rambeau's mother passed away 3 years. She's gone, so she was gone for 5 years. She passed away, 3 years after she was snapped. So the snap actually like made her like not get a chance to be with her mother when her mother passed away, which is like kind of crazy.
And it's one of those things they gloss over, but like just like think about like that pain kind of, you know, like that Maria Rambeau, her mother, would have felt, you know, like the snap happens, half of the world is dusted, and then you die, and there's no resolution to like, you know,
anything.
Where everybody else gets, you know, the happy ending, like, oh, bam, everybody's back, you know, it's 5 years later, but we're back. I think one thing that they kind of glossed over a little bit, which I think is going to come into play at some point, maybe not in this show, it may be more in Captain Marvel 2, there seems to be some sort of ill will from Monica towards Carol Danvers. I got a sense of that in episode 4.
So I read an interesting theory, and it was based around Captain Marvel's haircut in Endgame. Okay. So Endgame happens, obviously, 5 years after the snap happens. Captain Marvel was obviously very, very close with Monica Rambeau's mother. And so maybe when the cancer came back, Captain Marvel goes down and shaves her head to be in solidarity with her friend who's going through chemo.
I like that theory.
And then that's why her hair is shorter when she comes back in Endgame.
I like that theory.
I mean, I don't know if it's really that great of a storyline. I don't know if it makes any difference, but it's a pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's a cool aspect, and you could see how it would make sense. So it's not like she was just given a little Dutch boy butch haircut.
Yeah.
Right? Like she had cut her hair to be in solidarity with one of her closest friends who was dying from cancer.
Yeah, I think Monica Rambeau is going to end up being a pretty big player in Phase 4, you know, which we've speculated since they talked about her being cast in WandaVision, but in this most recent episode, we learn that there's the Sword agents are doing some, you know, medical lab run-ups on Monica's blood, and there's some irregularities in there. Things have changed since Monica has now passed through the hex wall twice, gone in and gone out. So that, to me, is that like that's how they're going to give her powers, because we all know that in the comic books, Monica Rambeau becomes Captain Marvel for a time.
Yeah, she becomes Photon.
Exactly, yeah. And they've since retconned her powers a little bit. They're no longer cosmic-based the way they were when she originally came out. Now, I think her character name in the comic books now is Spectrum, actually, I believe. Her powers are a little bit more light-based.
Yeah.
You know, but still, like, any way you cut it, like, awesome. I think she's going to be a big player.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm excited about it. Now, here's the question.
For sure she's going to be a big player.
The theory we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
I think, and this is way out there, but ever since frickin' Quicksilver showed up.
Well, yeah. So let's talk about that before you get into the theory, right? So obviously, you know, in one of the episodes, we have Wanda, and she is remembering about her brother, right? And obviously, we've got a chance to see Quicksilver in Age of Ultron, and in Age of Ultron, he was shot and killed, which was one of the cooler aspects about that movie, because I actually did not like the MCU Quicksilver. I really enjoyed the X-Men Quicksilver. I didn't enjoy the MCU Quicksilver. I didn't think he was as good or as funny, as interesting of a character. So I was actually very happy that they killed him off in the first movie.
Agree.
And I think it adds depth to the Wanda character. I think it adds a lot. So she's obviously got some issues that she's dealing with. She's feeling very alone. And all of a sudden, at the end of the episode, we see Quicksilver from the X-Men show up on her doorstep.
Right. Now, before we theorize,
with Darcy saying, "Oh my God, did she recast her brother?"
Yeah.
Right, in a little tongue in cheek.
Now, before we theorize, let's just take a moment to fanboy out for a second about how mind-blowingly awesome that was, because we were talking about it among our friend circles and in the Rotten Tomatoes League for a while, and I swore up and down. I said there is, you know, because Feige has been up there for 2 years now, going, it's going to be years before we get the X-Men, years before we get the right?
Yep.
But if you read between the lines, right? He said it's going to be years before we get the X-Men as a team. He never said it's going to be years before we see any X-Men or any
X-Men.
mutant. So fuck you, Feige, for your doublespeak. But thank you for giving us that, because I was very happy to be incorrect about that. When she opened the door, And I thought Quicksilver showing up was a strong possibility.
Yep.
And never in a million years did I think that they would drop the Evan Peters X-Men Quicksilver on us. And
no, neither did I.
my fucking dick just exploded through my pants. Like, that was just so mind-blowingly awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, really cool, and just such a unique way to see and bring in Quicksilver. Now, the question remains, right? You know, is that Quicksilver from the X-Men universe, or is that just supposed to be her brother in this same universe, and then it's just recast? Is it supposed to be the Don Cheadle, Terrence Howard?
Yeah, it's me. I'm here. Yeah, let's move on.
Let's move on, right? Is that what it's supposed to be?
Here is my theory on this.
Okay.
So one thing that we've learned pretty much for certain over the last couple episodes, we've learned a couple things. We've learned that Wanda is responsible for this, and she is aware to some extent of what she is doing. Yep. What she does not appear to be aware of is the exact why. And she has that conversation with Pietro in this last episode. Why are you doing this? I don't really know. It's like so this to me it has the potential. There's still a few episodes left, so you don't know which way it's going to go. But to me, this feels like they're ripping it straight out of the comics, and everybody keeps on saying House of M, House of M, House of M. And I keep on saying Avengers Disassembled.
Avengers Disassembled.
Because House of M, she knew... House of M comes after Avengers Disassembled, first of all, in comic book continuity. In House of M, she knew exactly what she was doing and why she was doing it. In Avengers Disassembled, it was the first time that her powers went beyond her control, and she didn't know what, like, she knew, but she didn't know exactly what she was doing, and she sure as shit didn't know how she was doing it. She didn't even know she was that powerful. So what I think
so for our listeners out there who
Yeah.
may not be familiar with House of M,
why the fuck are you listening to this podcast?
Well, no, listen. So if you're not familiar with House of M is a storyline where Wanda wanted to take her father, which in the comic books is Magneto, and she wanted to be...
Not anymore. They retconned that.
Right, they retconned
it
that.
It was for like 50 years.
Yeah,
but yeah.
And for some reason now it's not Magneto, but Quicksilver's father is Magneto. I don't know. Anyway, so it was a way like she wanted to be able to protect all of the mutants, right? And then and she wanted to have this sort of like, kind of utopia environment inside of this alternate reality that she herself creates. And in this, there's a lot of mutant. In fact, I think everyone's a mutant, right? And then
the whole thing was that it was her, if I remember correctly, it was her doing, but if I remember correctly, there was a heavy influence from Quicksilver to actually do it. But yeah, the idea was that essentially giving Quicksilver and Magneto the mutant utopia that they've wanted, where mutants were accepted, and it was a whole thing.
And it was all mutants. There were no humans, right?
Humans were the underground, the resistance, sort of.
And Magneto dies, I think, right? Like, doesn't he get killed? Is that why the No More Mutants happens?
To be perfectly honest with you, I forget how House of M ends. Right. I remember that they used it as a way to bring Hawkeye back because he had been killed in Avengers Disassembled.
Yeah.
And there was a really cool storyline with Spider-Man, I remember, because everybody thought Spider-Man was a mutant in House of M, but he was married to Gwen Stacy, and like he got really fucked up from that whole thing. I honestly forget how it ended, but I do remember it ends with No More Mutants.
Yeah, I mean that was the big ending, and essentially she completely reverses everything, and instead of it being all mutants, she goes no more mutants, and there's like 500 mutants left. Yeah, and that's it, and none are being born at all, and then until Faith years later.
Yeah,
right.
That gets resolved after.
And that was a huge thing in the comic books because like it was like trauma for almost 10 years. I want to say it was for a long time.
So I will die on this hill. The period of time that essentially begins with Avengers Disassembled in 1999, every storyline, all the way up through Avengers versus X-Men, when Hope absorbs the Phoenix and mutants start to get born again.
Right.
That is essentially one giant storyline. And within there you've got, Civil War and Secret Invasion and Dark Reign. It's all connected. But that it was like a 12-year period. I think Avengers versus X-Men was like 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
That era of Marvel storytelling, top to bottom, is probably the best era ever.
Yeah,
like in
storytelling.
My opinion. In my opinion.
It's just like every comic book is really, really good.
Yeah.
I even think they had was that when Annihilation was too, and
There's been like 8 different Annihilation
Yeah,
storylines, so I'm not
so-
really sure.
and there was one with Thanos as well. I think the Thanos Conquest or
Yeah.
whatever, and some pretty cool space stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was really awesome, and it resonated until Hope came back, and
Yeah.
and she was the first mutant, and Cable rescuing her, and like you
Yep.
know, oh man. So this is sort of like she is creating her own reality to be able to have peace, and we found out that definitively that she is in control of everything. It's
Yep.
Wanda. It's all Wanda, in which I loved that. I love that. It was such a good way for them to describe it, blame it on her. And that's the thing, is that I'm hoping, and I'm so afraid that something that potentially could happen in WandaVision that will sort of degrade the story is if you go away from that. If you make it where, oh, she's just being mind controlled by Hydra, that's going to make the story stupid.
I agree.
Right? Where if you have this and it is Wanda doing it, and it is all her desire, all her control, and even if she doesn't fully understand what she's doing, it's all her doing.
Yeah.
Like there is no one else who is to be at
'Cause
fault or at blame other than Wanda.
This to me sets up like the most amazing redemption story arc, because if you go back and think about it, she starts in Age of Ultron as a villain, basically.
Yeah.
She's working for Ultron. She doesn't really know. She has a change of heart when she realizes that what a fuckhead Ultron is, and then
Yeah.
but really they never really resolve her character arc in terms of what got her to work for Ultron really in the begin with. And like you mentioned before, they never show her dealing with the trauma of losing her brother. So it stands to reason that this is one of the things that, like, she's lost her brother, and you can make the argument that shortly after that happened, she started her relationship with Vision to sort of fill that void, and then he had his fucking skull crushed in.
Yeah.
So now she's unable to process that trauma, and that's where we have this, which
Yeah.
is very much like how you got Avengers Disassembled. Now, of course, in Avengers Disassembled, it was the trauma of losing her two twins, which you find out weren't really real to begin with. They were pieces of Mephisto that she had created, and Mephisto reabsorbed them back into her body.
Comic
That's a whole other
books.
fucking thing, right? Comic books. But I think this sets up for an awesome sort of redemption story, because we know she's going to be in Doctor Strange too. So if you end this series with her as a sort of villain, not like a full-blown evil villain, but like, your confused, sympathetic villain,
Yeah.
and then have that come full circle where she deals with everything, reconciles everything in her fucking head, either at the end of Doctor Strange or somewhere down the line, and fully fulfills her destiny, whatever, as a superhero. That's a really awesome, amazing story to tell.
Yeah, and we've definitely seen, like, we're really seeing a great character development and character arc within her, right?
Totally.
And so, which you don't get with a lot of characters in comic book movies all the time. And with this, you're really getting a chance. So you're getting a chance to see and understand her trauma, and it's unfortunate because her lashing out is putting trauma on other people, which we'll touch on, but you can understand the trauma that she's gone through, and she's now trying to create a utopia for herself so that she never has to deal with any of that.
Right.
That trauma ever
She's literally
again.
putting herself inside of a bubble.
Yeah,
Like, literally.
Yeah, and that's where she wants to live
Yeah.
for the rest of her life. The problem is that she's literally kidnapped an entire town,
literal people,
full of hundreds of people,
Yep.
and they're all literally enslaved.
So
right
let's go back to Pietro real quick, and my theory.
Yeah.
Now that we've given you all of this context, here's who I think Pietro actually is in WandaVision.
Okay, let's hear it.
So, couple things we know, like we said, for sure. She's doing this. She is aware that she's doing it. She's not entirely sure why she's doing it, but she knows she's subconsciously doing it to fill some sort of void in her soul. She said
Right.
she was feeling very lonely in this last episode.
empty,
blah, blah, blah.
empty.
And we know for a fact that Vision does not know anything about his life before coming to Westview. We get that cemented in this most recent episode where Agnes is like, "You're an Avenger," and he goes, "What's an Avenger?" Like, that's such a great scene. But like, so. And here's the other thing I think. So remember the episode where she got the glimpse of Vision, dead Vision, right?
Yeah.
So I theorized at that time that in this reality bubble, because we all know that Vision needed the stone to be alive, and
right.
we don't think that Wanda can recreate the stone, so most likely inside of the reality bubble, we see a live Vision, and this sort of was proved in this last episode when Vision tried to step out of the hex, he started to disintegrate and die. So most likely, Wanda has reanimated Vision's corpse, and to anybody else outside of the hex, Vision looks like that big corpse missing the thing in his fucking forehead.
Yeah.
So now enter Pietro. I think my theory is that Wanda, in her subconscious search for happiness, when she started to think about her brother, like you mentioned it after Monica mentioned it in the one episode, she essentially did the same thing that she did with Vision, plucked his body using her reality powers, popped it in the hex, but the way she animated it, because her powers are going beyond her control and she doesn't even really understand how to use them. This is where the magic part comes in, and she's literally bridging realities for souls and pops Evan Peters, X-Men Quicksilver's soul into this animated corpse. And that's why, but she only knows memories of the MCU Pietro. So that's why they talk about Ultron and being in Sokovia and all that stuff. But we all see, and that's why people on the outside watching this TV show like Darcy and Wu
she
see
calls
that
it
it's
out.
somebody different.
Yeah.
Because she's literally plucked this vision of him, no pun intended, outside of the multiverse because his consciousness, unlike Vision's, doesn't exist anywhere else.
Right.
So I think that the short answer is that it is MCU Pietro, but it's also X-Men Pietro. And this, I think, is the first glimpse of the multiverse, because I think it's too simple of an answer to just say, he just popped over from the multiverse and bam. Because like you said, they talk about Sokovia. Quicksilver from the X-Men he's not from Sokovia. He's from fucking Detroit or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's
and
the first hint.
Whereas MCU Quicksilver is not a mutant and not related to Magneto at all.
Right.
X-Men Quicksilver is Magneto's son.
Yep.
Like there's several times that it's mentioned and even embraced in Apocalypse.
Yeah. Oh, you got metal powers? My mom used to date a guy like that.
Yeah,
That's such a great line.
Yeah.
So,
then they even talk about it in Apocalypse, right? Like with Quicksilver and like,
yep.
So
that's my theory on Pietro. I don't know. I could be way off the fucking book with that one.
I'm one of the people that thinks that I think it's just tongue in cheek. I think it's very similar to. I think it's Don Cheadle. I think it's him coming in. I don't want it to be. I want it to be
I don't think they do that to us, though.
Yeah, I don't understand why use the actor from the X-Men movies. If you're not going to make it, why not just use a different character? Why not use a different actor? I mean, right? Like if you have a different actor, there's not going to be any kind of confusion. Like I think if they're using the actor from the X-Men movies, it's because they either want to confuse us or they thought, hey, this will be something that will be a really fun Easter egg, which Marvel doesn't really seem to be doing that kind of stupidity right now. Like I would believe that in a DC movie, like very easily, that kind of level of stupidity, but Marvel doesn't do that.
That's why I'm sticking with my touch of multiverse theory is what I'm calling it.
Yeah.
Because again, remember, she's in Doctor Strange too. The title of that movie is literally the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
So while
we know in the Spider-Man movies that we're going to have all of the Spider-Men.
I think that's still a rumor technically. Has it been confirmed?
I think it was confirmed. I think Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield.
Well, either way, I think that here's the important thing. The answer to who Pietro actually is, I don't think is going to come in this series. I don't think it's going to come in this series.
Yeah, I don't.
We'll see.
I don't think so either. And so there's only 2 episodes left, right? Because it's only 8 episodes, very similar to Mandalorian.
Oh, that's right. There's only 8 episodes.
Yeah. So
I could watch the show forever.
Especially because it's such a slow burn. And I understand there's a lot of people out there who are not into that. It's not their cup of tea, right? They don't like a slow burn. They want more action.
Those people are idiots.
Well, look, I would say, look, the MCU has something for everybody. Like, this is something that is completely different. It's completely original. And if you don't like it, don't watch it. It's not a big deal. I don't think that if you didn't watch WandaVision, that you'd be missing out on a lot of story going into, but it's really nice to be able to have something, right? And the slow burn is very, very interesting, right? And it really keeps you hooked week after week after week. Like, this week's episode was a little bit more of a building episode, and really, we didn't get a lot farther from the previous episodes.
And that's what makes this show so good.
Yeah, but it was a great episode nonetheless. And I'm still hooked.
So, what do you think about these Mephisto theories floating out there?
I don't
think I buy them.
I don't. Unless we get Nicolas Cage, I don't want any kind of Mephisto theories. Okay? Like, I know there was another Ghost Rider in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but no way. I want Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider in my MCU. I want Nicolas Cage in the Multiverse of Madness as Ghost Rider.
Okay, you mentioned Ghost Rider and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so now you're going to trigger. Here's my theory. Here's my $1 million theory.
All right, here we go.
And
we go.
If this,
listen up, Marvel and Disney.
If this proves to be even remotely correct, everybody will bow down and suck my dick.
Okay, that's probably not true. But.
So in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Season 4, they introduce from comic continuity, the Darkhold.
Okay.
The Darkhold is a book. It's like a spooky Bible, basically.
Yep.
Little magic spooky Bible. And essentially what it does is a little ambiguous, but one of the things that they basically confirm that it does is that it fucks with you.
Yeah.
Right? And in a sense, amplifies a lot of whatever you've got going.
Sure.
At the end of that season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Ghost Rider opens up a portal, which I never noticed this. The first time I watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I noticed it on the rewatch.
Okay.
The portal that Ghost Rider opens on his own is identical to the portals that Doctor Strange and Wong open with their little rings.
Their little
the
hand
exact
movement.
same thing.
So the one that we see all of the different portals that open up in Endgame and everything like that.
And so the final scene there is Ghost Rider stepping through one of those portals with the Darkhold in hand. Now, I also know, I haven't actually watched it yet because the show's not as good, but Season 3 of The Runaways, Morgan Le Fay shows up with the Darkhold in Runaways Season 3. So there's a connection right there. The Darkhold is still in play. I don't know how it ends, so this was where my theory might come apart. But I think my prevailing theory, because I don't buy the Mephisto theory, I think it's a little too much.
What, that Mephisto is... So what is the Mephisto theory?
So the Mephisto theory is that he is behind the whole thing, that he's manipulating Wanda.
He's manipulating Wanda,
right. And that he's the one that created the twins because that's how it was in the comics.
That's exactly what I don't want.
Yeah. I've even heard theories that Pietro might be Mephisto in disguise, which I don't think is... I honestly don't buy the Mephisto theories. So... What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, that would be kind of cool if Quicksilver, and the reason he looks different is because it's actually Mephisto.
But then again, it goes back to the question though. But why make it Evan Peters?
Why make it
Evan
Peters?
Yeah. So anyway, so my theory is that because the Darkhold is very heavily steeped in magic, and I think that what we're seeing with Wanda's powers is going to turn out to be magic because. Sure. They've never really explained what her powers are in MCU proper, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that the explanation for this, and it can be very easily done, and some people might say, oh, retcon, blah, 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 but it's not a retcon. You just say sometime between the end of Endgame and the beginning of this series, and in the last episode, Quicksilver even mentioned Shangri-La, which is very tied to mystical shit in Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
I think they're going to tell a bit of a backstory where Wanda, on this quest she has to fill this emptiness in her soul, finds the Darkhold, possibly in Shangri-La, and because the Darkhold has sort of bizarro, evil Bible powers, that is what triggers her powers to go on the fritz, sort of, and also powers her up, because it's exactly what it did in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It made you crazy, but also made you super powerful if you could read it. That's what happens, I think, and that is why she knows what she's doing, because one of the things they establish in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is that while the Darkhold kind of powers you up a little bit, you still kind of, for the most part, remain, with your senses about you. You know what's happening, but you might not know all of the why. Some pieces are missing. So just based on all of that, I think the Darkhold being behind this, her using it, not really knowing what it was, being kind of overtaken by it, is a pretty good theory as to why her powers are on the fritz and she's doing all of this.
Yeah, that's, certainly an interesting theory. I don't know.
I'm sure it's wrong, but it feels good to like.
It's interesting. I don't know. I hope that they keep it a little bit more simple, and because I like the idea that here is this super powered being that has to deal with trauma, and this is the way that they inappropriately deal with their trauma, right? That I can believe. It's a very believable storyline, right? That makes sense, right? Once you get overly convoluted and you're like, no, but we still want to have Wanda be a good guy eventually, and she needs to sell action figures and all of that, and no, man, no. There's plenty of female superheroes that are out there that, she would be an awesome villain. She is a great omega-powered hero that would make a great villain, and was a villain for a long time and multiple times in the comic books.
Yep.
So it makes sense and I really hope that they solidify it with it's just her. It's just her doing it. It's all her doing.
I agree.
She just wants to be left alone. She created her own little bubble, and that's it, right? But she has, her powers are starting to work on their own almost, where she's there. It's like her subconscious is controlling the powers, and she doesn't fully understand the depth and level of her powers.
Well, that was so cool about this most recent episode too, because we saw that her powers, while they seem almost limitless, the most recent episode seemed to imply that she has to really focus to make them work a certain way. Because remember when Vision was walking around the outskirts of town, and there's just the zombie people, the woman with the clothesline and the tear, dude, how fucked up was that?
Dude, the subtle, devastating, traumatic nature of all of this, and
then the fact that they all know.
Yeah, they all know, and this is not something that Wanda is going to come back from.
Yeah,
this is super duper evil.
Yeah,
she is literally paralyzing and torturing people.
Yeah,
it is, and it's so subtly done. It is absolutely terrifying, and it's brilliant. That scene where
Vision pops Agnes out of the hex, and she says, Wanda won't let us even think about leaving the town. I'm like, this is twisted. It's so fucked up.
Yeah.
But I love it.
It's because she's manipulating them like toys, because she's so much more powerful than them. She sees them as toys.
Right.
That's all she cares about is herself. And she found, and even Quicksilver talks about it. He's like, well, when did he even use the word utopia? He's like, well, when you have a utopia, I don't understand why you'd want to be living in the past.
Yeah, exactly.
I
thought it was so great. And I love that one. It was just a subtle conversation that Wu and Darcy had. Because we talked about this before, even before WandaVision came out. We speculated that Wanda was possibly the most powerful member of the team, because remember when she goes one-on-one with Thanos, she fucks him up. And if it wasn't, and Darcy even said it, she was like, if it wasn't for Thanos shooting all the missiles, she would have ripped him in half.
Which I didn't like that part, because how would Darcy know she wasn't there?
Oh, I have an answer to that.
Oh, tell me. Give it to me.
It's very, very simple. Well, Darcy, okay, so there's two things. Wu would know because he is a government agent. It stands to reason that he's got all the intel from that battle.
Sure.
Darcy, not as much. Darcy, I think you can easily make the connection. Thor told Jane. Jane told Darcy. Told Selvig. It all comes.
Because Thor is a storyteller.
Exactly.
Too.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense.
Wait, something just occurred to me.
What's that?
Ming, have you seen this most recent episode of WandaVision?
I actually have not. So
I feel so bad.
No.
I feel so. It just occurred to me we're talking about all of this stuff.
Dropping spoilers left
it's
and
my
right.
own fault, and I'm speculating it's not really a spoiler.
And
really,
in this
Yeah.
episode,
Not
there
really
wasn't really
spoiler.
much to spoil.
It just
Yeah.
occurred to me
No.
we're talking about
No.
all of this spoilerific shit, and I was like, wait a minute.
Well, oh well.
I appreciate that, but it's my own fault for waiting this long. But no, don't feel bad at all.
I love how he says waiting this long. It's Saturday.
24 hours,
The episode's
yeah.
been out for like 12 hours. Like,
Yeah. No, I think one of the things that I love about the show as well is that yes, there are a lot of delicious Easter eggs that are in there. Like you even mentioned one today with the twins and how Tommy is Wiccan.
Oh,
And
Wiccan's costume!
and he's wearing the Halloween costume of Wiccan, and
was
I didn't
so
even
good.
notice it. And it's just a cape and a headband. And then as soon as you pointed it out, I was like, duh. Like, it was so good. It
Yeah.
was so well done. The original costumes too of both Vision and Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver,
Yup.
getting a chance to see them.
Dude, and
it
talking
was
about
just
Easter
so
eggs,
good.
I love it was like the smallest Easter egg, but the kick-ass Easter egg from this most recent episode.
Yeah.
When he was like, because Evan Peters was in Kick-Ass. He was,
Yes.
which is so funny because
Yeah,
Aaron
yeah, yeah.
Taylor Johnson, who was MCU Quicksilver, and Evan Peters were both in Kick-Ass. And that I forget what is said, but then Quicksilver goes Kick-Ass, and the kids go
Yeah.
Kick-Ass,
Yeah.
and Wanda goes Kick-Ass. Like it
Yeah.
was just such a great little like yeah.
Yeah, it was a nice little nod.
And then, of
to,
course, this
movie.
week we got so every week we've been getting cool little Easter eggs in the form of the opening credits.
Yes.
So first it was like
Yes.
Dick Van Dyke Show
Yep.
opening credits. Then it was Bewitched opening credits, and then it was what was the '70s one? What did they mimic for '70s? I'm forgetting now. I know Family Ties was the one they did last week with the '80s.
Yeah, with the 80s.
And
it
this week
Family
was like
Ties.
a big Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah,
like,
very. It was so Malcolm in the
yeah.
middle. It was great.
Brady Bunch. Thank you. That's
Right.
what it was.
Yeah, it was
the
Brady
Bunch of the
right.
'70s.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
dude.
and like I love that. And then the other thing that I want to talk about, and chat me up here,
Go.
the commercials. I want to talk about the commercials
okay,
because
yes,
we were
yes.
kind of touching on this, while we were talking before we were recording. But let's talk about the commercials because I think the commercials that happen in the show are really they are definitely telling story. We just don't know what story that they're telling right now.
Right, because every commercial. So the obvious thing about the commercials is that they are referencing things that have already happened.
They're referencing something. That's
Exactly.
the obvious thing about the commercial.
So like the
They're
first one,
referencing,
the
yeah.
first one was the toaster, right? And
Right.
it references the Stark toaster,
right.
The second one was the watch, where they mentioned
Right.
Von Strucker, and we all know that Von Strucker was
Yep.
the guy that did the experiments on them in Age of Ultron and gave them their powers. Then the
Right.
next one was the soap, the Hydra soap,
Right, the Hydra
another
soap.
reference to like whatever. And then there was the paper towel one, which talked about the Lagos paper towel.
Lagos paper towels, which is where the Civil War started, right?
Exactly. That's where she blew up the building.
She blew up the building.
Right.
That was the thing where like Iron Man gets all upset because
Yep.
the kid dies in that building.
Yep.
So that's another thing.
No, the kid died in Sokovia.
Oh, he did die in
Right.
Sokovia. That's right.
Yeah, he was on
That's
a
right.
UN mission.
Yeah,
which,
that's right.
Which was the Alfre Woodward played the parent, but she was also the person from Luke Cage. Bit of a continuity error there, but that's okay. We'll
Yeah,
ignore
that's
that. Yeah. So here. Okay. So before we talk about the most recent commercial, let's just speculate on these. So we know that they're referencing things that have already happened.
Yeah.
But what could that possibly reference, or like what could that possibly mean for the now?
Yeah, why is it important to the story? Because I think that it's very obvious that all of them are very important to the story.
Yeah. This is the one piece of the puzzle I can't figure out.
Yeah, I can't either, right? And I don't know how it's all going to fit in, but it definitely, I mean, it's very, very, it's a cool, interesting take. It really gives you that half-hour sitcom story feel where
Yep.
it's got these product placements and stuff like that. But it's obvious that these are maybe like bits of Wanda's memories.
Well, I think that's
don't-
part of it. I mean,
I
they
don't think
definitely.
any. Yeah.
I mean, they definitely are, but that still begs the question for me: why? Like, why do we need to revisit these memories? How are these going to come back? At first,
Right.
I thought maybe it had something to do with the people in the commercials. It's always the same guy and woman. But then I was like, I've never seen these people before. There's no indication of who they could possibly be. So that probably isn't anything, I thought maybe it was like some sort of weird reference to like the Infinity Stones, maybe, like that doesn't make any sense really either.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to fit either.
But the most recent commercial, this is the one that really has me guessing, and this is the one I have the strongest theory about.
Yeah.
So the most recent commercial it's a cartoon commercial. It's the first commercial that doesn't feature the man and the woman that we just talked about. It's an
Correct.
animated commercial. It's a kid.
Right. It's the first animated one that we get.
And it's a kid on an island, and it's a very 90s style commercial to fit with the whole thing.
I literally remember this commercial. I think it was Shark Bites gummy fruit snacks.
Yep, exactly.
I think that's what it was.
Exactly
and
what
like
it was.
I remember this commercial vividly from the 90s. Yeah.
So it's a kid on an island, and he's got the shark shows up and he gives him Yo Magic Yogurt.
Yeah.
Yo Magic
Yo
Yogurt.
Magic Yogurt.
And the kid can't open the fucking yogurt, and it shows like a time lapse, and the kid literally dies trying to open the magic yogurt. So here's what I think this means, and I still don't know how it's really connected, I guess, other than a timeline thing. But again, going back to the comics, in the comics, the theory behind chaos magic, which is what she uses in Avengers Disassembled, is that if you use it too much, it draws on your life force.
Sort of like a Dorian Gray.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it could end up killing you.
Yeah.
So I think that this is the only way I could possibly think to look at these commercials is that the Yo Magic commercial references chaos magic, and that's what she's using right now. And if she uses too much of it, it's going to kill her. Everything else is her past leading up to this moment where she's using the chaos magic, and it's foreshadowing that using this magic too much is going to kill her. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, I think that's especially because it's called Yo Magic.
Right.
Like it's like
Yo Magic.
Yeah, it's Yo Magic. Yeah. So I think that it is. I think it's talking about her. But what is him being unable to open it? Like that has to signify something. Like him being unable to open the magic and to be able to use the magic, and then he obviously starves to death. There's got to be some significance to not being able to.
So the only thing I
magic.
can think of is, again, not to go back to the comic books every time, but one of the things that, like, and again, this sort of thinks about the movie or whatever, Doctor Strange is the person that has to show up later on in that storyline after Avengers Disassembled to teach Wanda how to use the chaos magic so that it doesn't kill her, basically. So maybe him not being able to open it is a symbol of Wanda not being able to use it properly, and that's why it's slowly killing her.
Now, do you think that by the last episode we're going to have another Avenger that comes in to be like maybe Doctor Strange to be like, yo, WTF?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing right now?
I think that's a strong possibility because, again, like we said before, she's been confirmed to appear in that movie.
Right, in Doctor Strange.
Right, and we don't know if it's going to lead directly into this movie, but I think it makes a lot of sense to maybe not have Doctor Strange show up to, like, save the day sort of thing, but in, like, an after credits scene, like, he's the one that shows up and he takes Wanda or something, like, like...
I hope she's the villain. I hope she is the villain in that movie. I think...
I'm telling you, it's going to be a redemption story. I think it's going to be a redemption story. She's going to be the villain, but then in the end, come around
redeemed.
and yeah.
Well, I mean, it's going to be hard to have to redeem her without killing her,
Yeah.
because like she's pretty far off the deep end, and like she's literally torturing people right now, like literally torturing them every day of their life.
Yep.
And that ain't cool, man. Like, and you can't just like forgive and forget that kind of stuff. I know that, oftentimes in movies there's that suspension of belief, right? And you just kind of like, oh, It's like in Tango and Cash, right? Tango and Cash, they break the law, they escape from prison, right? They break out of prison, and then oh no, we have this file, and it'll clear our names, so we don't have to go back to prison, and all of these other crimes like don't matter at all, right? So we definitely don't want to have the whole Tango and Cash thing where like, oh, one nice thing that she does, like it erases all of this horrible thing.
And I think it will. I think it will be something kind of like redemption-y sort of thing, because the one thing that Marvel has done well, is show the consequence. I mean, look at like Civil War. Like that's what Civil War was about. You got to see those consequences, you know. And then they, you know, you have Infinity War to sort of sweep that under the rug a little bit, but it works, you know, like it all works. So I do think that there's gonna be like a bit of a reckoning for her. I think Marvel is comfortable taking that kind of a risk and truly portraying her as, you know, not an evil villain, but a villain nonetheless, you know? Because I mean, like, again, I think, how many times have we talked about the best villains are the ones that don't know they're villains, or that they think they're not, you know what I mean?
They think they're not villains. Yeah, of course. And of course, those villains then making the redemption, like Darth Vader, right, in the Death Star,
exactly,
or the second Death Star, rather. You know, that when they have that redemption moment, and you're like, okay, like, you know, this, but they have to die at the end, which I also don't necessarily disagree with, because look, you can't have the same actors in these roles forever. Like, you have to kill off. That's why that's why they got rid of Tony Stark. It's why they got rid of Captain America, because you gotta make room for newer actors to come up into these roles. Right? You gotta.
It's like WWE, baby.
It's I mean, it was
put
just
them over,
say,
baby. Put them over.
I mean, Shawn Michaels was kind of talking about it, because Shawn Michaels has a very prominent hunting show, and one of the reasons why a lot of hunters go out there is because you have to take out the older group of animals so that the younger group can come up, right? And that's like a very important thing, and that you need to do that, right? And having this where she becomes the bad guy and then has her redemption, but dies in her redemption in trying to save everyone, right? And she can save everyone, right? It's almost like Sean Connery in Highlander 2.
Oh, fuck.
I can hear the collective groan out there. No, okay, maybe it'll be a little bit better than Sean Connery in Highlander.
It can't be any worse, that's for sure.
Oh, man.
Fuck.
What a great
Coming
movie.
soon to the Review Podcast Network, Cannon Fodder's take on the Highlander universe.
No, so I think it could make sense if it's a redemption story and she is able to sacrifice herself, but I don't think it works without her dying. Like, that's the thing. I think we're in Scarlet Witch's endgame. Like, she's back, she's here. We're eventually she's.
I know. I don't want to see her die. I love her character.
I know. I like her character too. But
it would be good storytelling.
It would be good, but you have to. I mean, that's just that. Otherwise, it's not good storytelling, and she's just there. And
if they kill her,
and then what? Because then they're protecting a criminal who's literally tortured hundreds of people. Tortured. If they kill her off, which I agree, I think is the best thing. Like, probably in Doctor Strange, I think would be the way to do that. I want Wiccan to take her place. Because they've already done this whole aging up, you know, nonsense. Just fucking tack on 10 more years, make him 20 years old, and just put Wiccan. Maybe not even. Just leave him as a little kid, and just keep him as he gets older over the next 10 years. He will, then you have him. Like, imagine, because like what let's say he's 11, 12 right now, right?
Yeah, it looks about that.
You know, and then there's going to be movies for the next 10 years like there were for the last 10 years. Can you imagine if there was a kid who was in, like, that was the thing. So in Endgame, there is a person who is in the back of Tony Stark's funeral that nobody recognizes. Everyone's like,
oh yeah, the kid from Iron Man 3.
It's the kid from Iron Man 3 because he was a kid in Iron Man 3, and surprise, surprise, children grow up and
Yeah,
get
it was
older.
like 8 years earlier. Yeah.
8 years later, he grows up and he's now in his 20s when he was 12. When,
Yep.
when Iron Man 3. Now he's much older, and and it's like, oh, okay. So if you do something like that, where now you have his character and he slowly gets older, and we see him get older, it's great because we grow, his character grows as he grows in real life.
That
And
was such a
it's
cool
amazing.
Easter egg because Iron Man 3 is a great movie. I don't care what anybody says.
It's
It's a great fucking
it is
movie.
it does have its moments.
People that don't like Iron Man 3 are stupid people.
I'm upset that they never stuck with the Iron Patriot. Like, why when War Machine came back?
I know, that
he
was a
War
wasted-
Machine.
yeah.
Yeah, like it's like you
they
have.
should have never done
they
it. Like
never
they
should have.
never
They
done
never
it.
should have
Yeah.
done Iron Patriot.
Yeah, they
Because,
should have just
like, that's
saved
such a
it for a later
great-
date.
That's such a great character,
Yeah.
and for them to use the paint job, although.
Because I don't care what anybody.
Well, you could also have, like, maybe that's the thing. Maybe later on we're going to see a Norman Osborn find
We'll
that
see.
Iron Patriot armor,
That's
which
a
I think
reach.
would be.
That's a reach.
I think it'd be cool.
I don't care what anybody says. One of my favorite scenes, and I think Age of Ultron is, with the exception of the Dark World, Age of Ultron is probably one of the weaker MCU movies.
Oh, yeah, it's by far.
But I don't care what anybody says. That fucking scene where the helicarrier shows up, which you later find out that Phil Coulson built in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for Nick Fury for Age of Ultron was so awesome. When that helicarrier shows up and the Ultron drones start attacking it, and Nick Fury goes, "Show him what we got," and then War Machine comes flying in, just murking drones. Dude, I marked out so hard because I've always
Yeah.
loved War Machine, and I was
me
like,
too.
I wanted him to be in the Avengers picture. I didn't want him to just live only in the Iron Man movies. I wanted him to be upgraded so hard, and when he shows up in that scene, murking Ultrons in, oh god, it was such an awesome fucking scene.
Yeah, it was really cool, and I think that. Especially with Rhodey's character, you've seen a lot of consequence that has
Oh,
happened,
yeah.
right? Especially like he's paralyzed from the waist down, like, and he has to, like, he's able to walk because Tony Stark
got
gave
Stark
him
Tech,
the
baby.
Stark Tech legs, right? Which is great. But it really shows that there is consequence,
Yeah.
right? The fact that Tony Stark is dead, the fact that there are still other people that got snapped, and and there have been consequences and changes since they got snapped. Like, a lot of that stuff is really, really
Yeah.
cool, and I think that is a big indicator that yes, this is not gonna be. Will not go unresolved. Like, there will be consequences for Wanda's character.
Yeah.
That will last for the rest of the time.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
So here's my last question about WandaVision. Do you think, or who do you think Monica Rambeau is going to meet at the end of that episode? Remember, her phone buzzes and she goes, "Oh, here's my way back into the Hex, calling me right now," and her and Jimmy Woo leave to go meet whoever this person is. Who do you think she's going to go meet?
Oh, that's a great question.
Because I'll tell you who I think it is and who I want it to be.
My first initial reaction is Agnes, right? Where it's going to be it's Agnes who's in there, and that's who
Okay, all right, that's fair.
is reaching out to her. But then Agnes really doesn't know. Like,
Right.
Vision had to, like, fix her mind, right?
So who do you want it to be? If you could pick any character,
Man.
who would you want it to be?
Quicksilver. I mean, well,
How could it be Quicksilver?
How could it be Quicksilver? Yeah.
Could it be?
How could it be anybody?
What are you, drunk?
No, but how could it be anybody? Okay, bring it. I mean, it would have to be. It would have to be Doctor Strange. I mean, that's the only person that.
Right. So, So again, who I think it is, Doctor Strange. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Just knowing what we know. I think a character like Rhodey is a strong possibility. But here's who I want it to be:
Okay.
Reed Richards. That's who I want it to be.
Why would it be Reed Richards?
Because I want them to establish Reed Richards, Sue Richards, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm as people, regular human beings, doing their fucking
their regular
science
human
shit.
being
Yep,
stuff.
doing their regular human being stuff. Reed
Before
Richards
they become-
is some sort of subcontractor for SWORD who observes sentient worlds, space shit that Reed Richards loves, and then you introduce them early, and that feeds into the origin story because instead of it being like in the comic books where they're on some, self-funded mission to space where they get blasted with cosmic rays,
Yeah.
now they're on a SWORD mission.
That's interesting.
That's what I wanna see.
I mean, it's an interesting idea.
Or Sue Richards, one of the other.
Well, because I've heard the rumor that Captain America is coming back as Human Torch in Multiverse of Madness. That's what I've heard. I've heard he is going to show up in Multiverse of Madness as the Human Torch.
Okay, so that's the tongue-in-cheek shit that I want. That's
Yeah, I would love that.
A 30-second scene, like he just shows up, but it's got to be like so douchey. Like
he's got to have that
no
personality.
shirt, like bleach blonde hair, just like the douchey, like have girls on his arms, just like the douchiest fucking thing ever. Oh my god, that would be so great.
Yeah, it would be amazing. It would be like the coolest thing in the world.
Oh my
right?
God.
And you just get him, and then he's just there.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it'd be so much fun. And how cool would it be to see Jessica Alba? Like, I would love to see Jessica Alba in coming in and reprising her Sue Storm role.
Hey man, I've said this before 1,000 times, and I will say it again. The first Fantastic Four movie, the first 2/3 of it it's a very good comic book movie.
Highly enjoyable.
It's a classic, well done, character driven origin story. And then the third act, when they just
having the
full on action that makes no sense with Doctor Doom, and then it just
having the dude from Nip Tuck be Doctor Doom.
Dude, it was so.
Although I love,
and then he had like organic metal like under his face,
right?
like,
Which is it's kind of like the ultimate Doctor Doom.
Yeah,
that was kind of like the way that he
was.
was.
It was so dumb.
Yeah,
it was so dumb.
It was not good.
Yeah,
that
movie was great up until the third act. Like I will never forget watching the movie in theaters. I'm like, this movie is fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's
and then
cool.
it just went from 100 to 0 in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And the second one,
and Michael Chiklis was great as the Thing.
Dude,
he was
practical effects are better.
Yeah, they really are.
He
they
looked
really are.
so good as the Thing.
And I think that a lot of people are realizing that it's actually cheaper to do practical effects nowadays. Like we've
it's like $100,000 per frame with CGI.
Yeah, we've passed that threshold, right? Where CGI was the way that was cheaper than it was to do practical effects, and that's why we had a lot of CGI. But the fact of the matter is that unless you want to have really terrible looking CGI, Wonder Woman, then you have to do practical effects.
Yeah, because people are lazy now with CGI. It's made people lazy.
I saw a behind the scenes for a TV show where they ran an airplane into an airplane hangar, and it was cheaper for them to do it that way.
Oh yeah,
and to like rent an airplane and to build like this faux hangar to smash an airplane into, than it would be to CGI it.
Yeah,
because it just
absolutely.
wouldn't look good because it would just be cheap.
No, it's always cheaper. Yeah, and like sometimes like when you look at, we've talked about this before, like when you look at a character like the Hulk is like 12 feet tall. Like that has to be a mocap kind of character. A character like the Thing, the Thing is supposed to be taller, but can you get away with him just making a little bit of lifts in his shoes and a rubber suit? Yeah, and it looked aweson.
Yeah, I mean,
it was great.
You have to have a good rubber suit, but in that one, it did look good.
It looked great. It was fantastic. I mean, again, I think we talked about the Ninja Turtles, but dude, the 1989 Ninja Turtles suits are infinitely better than that CGI monstrosity that Michael Bay made.
Yeah,
infinitely better.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is like that is the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's peak rubber suit.
A rubber suit.
Peak rubber suit.
Yeah, I have never seen a rubber suit look better. But that's also because they had like the whole facial structure was all animatronics.
Right.
Like there was an entire robot under that face to be able to lift and do very specific, kind of things.
And it worked.
It worked.
It was great.
It worked really well. And it made the whole movie so much better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, really excited to see where WandaVision goes from here. I think this is going, I think WandaVision is serving as a setup to build the villain for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yep.
I think
agree.
Wanda is the villain, and will be the villain in Multiverse of Madness. I think she'll be a great villain. I think it makes sense. I think it's going to be really funny to see and how they bring in all these other people and kind of bring it into one. The only thing I'm interested in is Quicksilver. Who is he? I want to know more about this Quicksilver.
Yep.
Is it just supposed to be, is he Don Cheadle in Iron Man 2? Or is this supposed to be like the actual Quicksilver from Avengers? Will we get Fassbender in an Avengers? I want Avengers versus X-Men so bad. That is such a multi-billion-dollar movie franchise. Like Avengers versus X-Men would just be an amazing story, and it would be so much fun, and it would be you would have people that would be more split than it is in Civil War.
Yeah.
Right. And you could have an entire phase, like phase 5 is all Avengers versus X-Men.
Right, leading up to it.
Yeah. I mean, like how long? I mean, it was a 12-month arc, when they did it in the comics, and it crossed over with every single comic in the MCU.
Yep, basically.
So like everything revolved around the Phoenix Force and
loved
Marvel
Avengers vs. X-Men. That was
Avengers
so
versus
great.
X-Men was awesome.
And like I said, it was just an amazing cap on like 12 years of storytelling.
And how
Amazing.
cool would that be? Where you could splinter the Phoenix Force, and you could have now like multiple of the X-Men get the Phoenix Force, and they have to fight the Avengers.
I would just
and
like to
everything.
see the Phoenix Force done correctly for once. We're 0 for 2 now.
Well,
like, can we just get one once, please?
No,
Motherfuck.
you got it in the X-Men cartoon show, and that's good enough.
Good
You
enough.
know what? Good enough.
Oh, God. All right, guys. Well, listen, you guys know the drill here. Go like all of our stuff, subscribe, go comment, tell us what you think. Who do you think Pietro is?
Yeah.
When is this gonna? What is this gonna lead into? What is Wanda doing? Is Agnes actually Agatha Harkness? Is Mephisto gonna show up? Please no. Just tell us what you think.
Yeah, and let us know. We want to hear your theories. We want to hear your thoughts about where the universe is going. Do you think that Wanda is being set up to be the villain in another movie, or do you think that this is really just going to be something that they're just going to kind of sweep all under the rug and, it's going to be business as usual and Wanda's going to be just a good guy again? You know?
Well, we'll have all of the answers to these questions as we come back for our next episode, which we will most assuredly be talking about the conclusion of WandaVision. So until then, I am Matt.
I'm Anthony.
And as always,
Stay tuned, true reviewers.
nice.
Nice.